Child rape. So in the pedophile molestation section, I talked about there are some people that are just attacking whatever they can attack. It's not specific, it's not necessarily pedophilia, it's a target. And it is based on that women and children are not people, so therefore it's acceptable to do and treat them that way. My first rape was 6 at knife point, and I'm going to talk about the whole trauma of being pinned down at knife point in the violence section. But I'm going to add a separate for children because, like in the molestation, there is that blacking out of memories because it is too much for you to handle. It's too much for you to handle because you're a child, because you're small. The level of pain can cause you to black out. I think some of us that have experienced traumas know that enough pain in and of itself will cause a blackout. You add the emotional trauma and the stress and the strain, and those memories may not come for years and years and years and years. Not until your brain thinks that, or your emotions think that you can handle it. So that's the blackout, and that's why a lot of times you end up with nightmares when you're a grown-up. So in my case, I was a little kid. I was wearing either, I don't remember if it was a Holly Hoppy or a strawberry shortcake. It was a nightie that I had gotten from one of my hand-me-down cousins. And I loved it. It was an adorable, I had a girl nightgown. Woo, 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 woo. I was feeling it. And a stranger had, I guess there's probably more of a location. My parents believed boys and girls should always be separated. My next sister is not for 10 years, which means all of the boys were put in one room, and I was put in a separate room. The room that I had was way to the back in the corner. There was a stairwell that came up, and there was a door there. Now, that room was draftier and colder potentially, but I had the ability to escape, shall we say. And it was kind of the location of shoving me in the corner or whatever. My mom hated the sound of girl babies. She said she couldn't handle us crying or whining or whatever girls do that apparently boys don't do. She didn't like the sound. So I was kind of shoved back in the corner. And again, I had that door that I could get out of if I needed to. Escape route, I guess you might call it, in the land of violence. But one night, someone broke in while I was sleeping, and I was laying in my own bed in my Holly Hoppy dress, or nightie. It was a nightie, and I was woken up by the cold of the knife, being pinned down, and then I could feel he was, I don't know, 3-4 times the size of me. It was massive amount of weight and a massive size, just engulfing my whole body. There was nothing I could do. He reached down and kind of stretched the area, I guess, and then penetrated, and I blacked out. I woke up in a lot of pain, and scared, and went all the way down. My parents were way down in the basement where the heater was, and I think I knocked on the door, but when I went to open the door, this screaming began that I knew that I was supposed to be in bed, and what was I doing up, and I was going to get my ass beat if I didn't get my ass back to bed right away, blah, 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 blah. I'm in trouble for bothering them. It's the middle of the night, and I know better. So I think I closed the door and cried for a little bit, and then went back up to my room and cried some more, and I was terrified. I was pushing I think I had a dresser or something, or bed, or I was shoving everything I could in front of the door, and the other entrance for the house section, I was trying to block the outside door, and the other entrance to the house section, I remember just curling up there and crying, and I was in so much pain. I was physically, you should not assault children. I mean, you shouldn't anyways, but a grown man assaulting a child is physically damaging as well as emotionally damaging. I remember curling up, and I remember doing that for a few nights. I know when I was older, my mother used to say that I would just be up moving furniture all night, that I was nocturnal because that's all I did all night was move furniture because I didn't feel safe. So I kept moving anything and everything to block the door and block the window, and I just couldn't. I was just too scared. So that's how I would sleep, is curled up in a ball over by the thing. Now, you can't talk to your parents if they're threatening to beat you when you go to them for help. So where do you report that? Who do you reach out to? And we didn't have sex education. We weren't aware of anything. So I didn't even recognize it as a rape at that point. Now, I do believe exposure to the pedophile kind of helped place the rape, and I think that that actually made me very vulnerable to the molestation, because now I've had the sex, which is taboo, and you can't talk about those things, and you can't. Mom kept us out of sex ed. We weren't educated about what sex is, what rape is, what molestation is. You don't talk about those subjects. So when the pedophile had access to me, I was already damaged. I was already broken. In my mind, I had already had committed the sex, which is, you're not supposed to do that. And when you're a child, you can't place, you're not getting full information, especially if you live in a land of boys and girls should always be separated, and this is bad, and this is evil. So you're already doing so much damage to your children by not educating them about parts and what parts do, and how, why. And then usually when you're not educating them about that, you're also not educating them about why you're not educating them, right? So we got some serious problems. So my first rape was childhood. There was no place to go. The amount of fear was already so strong. Physical problems after that. I've always had problems with periods. I've had multiple miscarriages. I was never able to carry, and I do think some of that might have had to do with being physically damaged at such a young age. So there is a lot of trauma and lifelong repercussions from being a child that's raped. I know when I see the specials on child brides across the world, and there was a politician just recently arguing that 11 and 12-year-olds should be able to marry, and I don't believe in violence, but I'll tell you what, did think he needed a little whacking. Yeah, small children shouldn't be forced into physical contact ever, but it does happen, and when it does, you can't let it destroy your life. So I'm PTSD.online again. I am not the only child that was raped. I have met several again. I have been in group therapy with other rape victims, and it is different. When you are a vulnerable child and you can't escape and you can't go anywhere and you try to report and more violence is threatened upon you, it is different. So talk about that, and you'll hopefully meet some other people and find a way to heal. PTSD.online, or you can right here, or this is on YouTube, and they have a communication system there as well. But it is important to get that hurt out, and to get that anger out, and to get that out, because it just rots you inside when you hold it in.